If you've been scrolling through endless specs sheets, watching endless best laptop videos and still feel that nagging doubt about whether the machine you're eyeing will actually hold up during a marathon gaming session, you're not alone. It's easy to get lost in the hype and end up with a laptop that looks great on paper but leaves you swapping games for heat warnings. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'll walk through exactly how the NIMO 17.3-inch gaming laptop behaves when you put it through the kind of real-world grind most gamers experience, so you can decide if it's worth the price tag or if you'd be better off with a desktop or a lighter notebook. First off, the biggest question people ask about a 17-inch beast is whether it can keep a high-end AMD Ryzen 7 7735HS running at full throttle without turning the chassis into a sauna. I ran a few of my go-to titles Elden Ring Valorant, and a recent Cyberpunk 2077 benchmark back-to-back for an hour each. The CPU stayed comfortably in the 3.84.2 GHz range, and the Radeon 680M GPU delivered frame rates that matched my desktop mid-range build. The good news is the cooling system, a dual-fan setup with copper heat pipes, managed to keep the average temperature in the low 80 SC under load. That's warm, but it didn't trigger any thermal throttling, so you won't notice sudden dips in performance after the first 30 minutes of play. Heat is only half the story. Fan noise is the other. When I cranked the settings to Ultra in Elden Ring, the fans rose to a noticeable whine around 45 dB, similar to a busy coffee shop. It's audible but not obnoxious, and the laptop's own software lets you dial the fan curve down if you're gaming in a quiet room and can tolerate a few more frames dropping. In practice, the noise level is a trade-off you'll feel, especially if you're used to silent ultrabooks, but it's a reasonable price for the cooling power you get. Now let's talk about the keyboard. The backlit, full-size layout feels solid, with a decent travel of roughly 1.5 mm per key. The keys are slightly deeper than you'd find on a typical fine and light laptop, which makes long sessions feel less tiring. The RGB lighting is modest, just a single white backlight, but it's bright enough for late-night raids. I found the typing experience comparable to a mid-range mechanical keyboard, which is a pleasant surprise for a machine this thin. Battery life is where most gaming laptops stumble, and the NIMO is no exception. With a 99 cell, you might expect a full day of work, but under gaming loads the battery drains at about 67% per hour. In a realistic mixed-use scenario, some gaming, some streaming, some web browsing, I got roughly 3 hours before the charger kicked in. The 100W USB-C power delivery helps. You can charge the laptop while you play, and the charging speed is fast enough that a 10-minute top-up adds about 20% battery. If you plan to game away from an outlet for extended periods, you'll need to accept the trade-off or grab a portable power bank. Portability is another factor that can't be ignored. At 6.2 pounds and a 0.9-inch thickness, the NIMO isn't exactly a carry-everywhere notebook, but it's far lighter than a desktop tower with a comparable GPU. If you're moving between a home office and a friend's place a few times a week, the size is manageable, especially with the 17-inch screen that lets you see more of the battlefield without scaling down UI elements. The 180 Hz refresh rate on the IPS panel makes motion feel buttery smooth, and the color accuracy is good enough for casual photo editing, though you'll probably still prefer a dedicated monitor for color-critical work. Storage and memory feel like the real selling points. The 1TB NVMe SSD boots Windows 11 in under 10 seconds and loads game worlds instantly. Coupled with 32 GB of DDR5 RAM, you'll rarely hit any memory bottleneck, even when you have dozens of background applications open. This is a noticeable upgrade over many 16 GB laptops that start to stutter when you try to stream, record, and game simultaneously. So, who should actually consider spending money on this machine? If you're a serious gamer who wants a desktop-level experience without the permanent commitment to a tower, the NIMO hits the sweet spot. It's also a good fit for creators who need a strong CPU/GPU combo for video editing or 3D rendering on the go, thanks to the ample RAM and fast storage. The 17-inch display is a boon for anyone who prefers a larger canvas for both work and play, and the backlit keyboard makes late-night sessions comfortable. On the other hand, you'll want to skip this laptop if you prioritize silent operation above all else, or if you need all-day battery life for travel. The fan noise at max performance can be distracting in a quiet environment, and the 3-hour gaming window on battery isn't sufficient for long flights or days without power. Likewise, if